Alright, so I tried filming this once already, and I always fuck this up after not making a video for a long time. I always misframe it, and I always somehow end up out of the shot. I don't know, but we're going to try this again. I'm going to talk about the movies, just the ones that I really want to talk about, because I've gotten a lot of movies recently, and there's some that I haven't seen. Those are the ones I'm not going to talk about for the most part, and there's just some that I've gotten, I just don't really have much to say about. You know, there's some comedies over there that, Funny People, for example. It's okay, but what am I gonna sit here and say about Funny People that I don't know? I'd just be like, Funny People, you know. Alright, so Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I really enjoy the premise of this movie more than the movie itself. I don't really mind watching it, you know, once every here and there, probably once every couple of years. I just really think the premise is interesting. Falling in love with somebody, having a really bad breakup and wanting to erase them from your memory, and then falling back in love with that person all over again, with having the rest of your memory still intact. So everything around that relationship is normal. It's a bizarre premise. It's very interesting. I'd say see it once in your life. It's one of those where you kind of just have to check it out and tell me what you think of it, kind of sort of deal. Dan in real life. I'm not a huge Steve Carell fan, but when he has the right role, I thought that was hair on it. When he has a right role, I think he's a pretty good actor. You know, this is more of a serious comedy. He's not being a slapsticky. It's the stuff around him and the situations are funny. It's not really him trying to be all loud and stupid, like Brick from Anchorman. It's just not funny. But in this, another really interesting concept where you and a girl fall in love, but she's dating your brother. It's like, that's kind of a fucked up thing, you know? What would you do in real life, right? How would you continue talking to your family after falling in love with your brother's sister? It'd be really interesting, and this movie's good. I'd say, again, check it out, tell me what you think. Beowulf. I had zero expectation. I saw Robert Zemeckis directed this, and I kind of pushed this one off for years and years, because I'd always just imagined it bombed for a reason. And usually, it's true. I mean, a movie usually does bomb for a reason. It's usually not very good. But in this case, I feel like this was just kind of a misunderstood gem of a movie. And it was in the saturated market of that early 2000s where CGI was kind of getting overdone a little bit at that time. So people were probably sick and tired of another CGI movie. Great. By Robert Zemeckis, the guy who made Polar Express. And he kind of went through an obsession with that early 2000s CGI. And I don't blame him, because it looks really good in certain movies. In this one in particular, it looks great. That opening scene where, what's his name? Why can't I ever remember his name? Like, it's something really gross that's very sexual. And, Grundle, that's it. Grundle walks in, I think, let's just move on. Grundle walks in and just starts eating people and ripping them apart, and that's when I realized I was watching a movie that I was going to enjoy. I was kind of worried, you know, even at the beginning, of like eating, and it's like, oh, it's gonna maybe be a cheesy movie. No. He comes in, screaming, ripping them apart, eating them. It's like, this is violent. It's bloody. It's everything I needed from this. It went in ways I didn't really expect it to go. Which, when I see that in a movie, that's usually when I like it. When it kind of beats my expectations in a way that's good. Last Jedi, you hear that? In a way that's good. Subverting expectation, not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Hoosiers, or Hoosiers, however you want to pronounce it. It's okay, you know, it's alright. I just thought it was I kind of wanted to show this case, because there's not too many of these anymore for Blu-rays or anything, where they make these interesting covers and cases for the movies. I miss these days where, you know, collector's edition, and it feels just like a basketball. It was a pretty cliche 80s basketball movie, but Gene Hackman is lovable, and I'm just happy that he's still kicking around out there. I love him as an actor. There's certain people where every 10 or 15 years you get 5 to 10 actors that are extremely memorable, and he was one from the 70s that was just amazing, in 80s, and even the 90s. Guess Who? You know, if you haven't seen this comedy, you might be looking at it thinking this looks like a piece of shit movie, and it kind of is a little bit. It's a little bit of that, but it's got Bernie Mac in it, who I think is one of the more underrated comedic talents of the early to mid 2000s. especially in Bad Santa, kills me every time. The guy is just so deadpan, and every line he delivers is just comedic gold. And I think this goes hand in hand with that, where his comedy is so straight man. You've got Ashton Kutcher, who's the goof, obviously, and then he's just straight man it the entire time. It's been a long time since I've seen this, but there was a phase where I went through where I watched this 5 times in a week. Because you obviously remember the days of renting movies. We rented this, and I binged the hell out of this movie. I just kept watching it over and over again. My Best Friend's Girl, another trashy comedy that I'm not going to try and defend my opinion on, but I grew up watching this, and the eyebrow shaving scene will never leave my mind. It's one of the funniest scenes in a movie for me. It's obviously not realistic, but you please go watch the eyebrow cutting scene from My Best Friend's Girl. And that's pretty much all you need to see to be sold on watching at least some of this movie. And the concept, again, I like it, where you send this guy on a date with your ex-girlfriend. She hates it so much she wants to come back to you. It's a pretty interesting concept. Simpy, but it's interesting. True Grit. I love this movie. I mean, I have probably rewatched this and probably upgraded to Blu-ray. I love Westerns so much. It's my favorite setting for a movie. Every time I find a good Western, I'm just so happy and overjoyed. And I'm glad I waited on this and kind of pushed it off to when I was old enough to really appreciate it. Same with stuff like There Will Be Blood. If I watched that at 15, I don't think it would hold the same value to me now. I was watching it in my 20s. This was great. You've got the dude, obviously. You've got Matt Damon and Josh Brolin. The cast was just great. Overall, great cast. And I just thought the story was really intriguing. It's simple. You could follow it, and you want to see a good showdown. And that's what you get. You get a good showdown at the end. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, one of the more overrated comedies ever. That's kind of why I want to talk about it, because I couldn't really believe that people like this movie as much as they say they do. Every review I see of this movie on YouTube or anywhere else, they always say this is one of the more underrated comedies with great comedic timing, and I don't like Shane Black, and there's a reason that he doesn't really get work anymore, because he's not funny, and his writing is out of style, and it's not good anymore. Never really was, except for Lethal Weapon, and it gave him a career forever, unfortunately. I love Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, so I guess I do like something he worked on, but overall I feel like he's kind of overrated. Iron Man 3 is a prime example of how shit he is, and same with the Predator movie he directed, just not good. And this kind of goes in line with that. I didn't really laugh very much, and I was expecting this to be funny. So I was kind of let down, to be honest. Man in the Iron Mask. If you've not seen this, please go watch this. This is one of the more underrated DiCaprio movies, and just underrated movies in general. I had no idea what this was. I found this one day on Tubi, and I was so overjoyed that I was able to find something like this, where it was a Three Musketeer movie that I had no idea even existed. Really, it's the Four Musketeers, because D'Artagnan's there. And you've got two DiCaprios, where he's got his twin brother locked up in the Iron Mask, and he's this king, and it's such a good movie. Please go watch this. And somebody had to say it. It's a good movie. I don't hear enough people praising this online or ever talking about it, period. So you gotta go check that shit out. The Bodyguard. And The Bodyguard, to me, is one of the sadder movies that I've seen in my life, but also beautiful and great and happy in the end, technically, because they end up together. But I don't cry watching movies very often. This movie put me in tears like a child, where I was bawling at the end, because it was just such a beautiful story concluding. She was taken too soon from us. Certain celebrities, when they die, it's just so much sadder than the rest, and she was one of them, where her star shined a little brighter than the rest of them. Her voice was pretty much perfect, and yeah, she's just, that's all I gotta say before I get emotional. Not really, but it is sad. That movie's just overall, it's a great love story. Hard Target. I go to a movie store and I always push this off. I'll always buy stuff before I buy this. I think it was $12.99, and I always end up buying something else before I grab this. And I just ended up buying this last time I was there because I love this movie so much, and I needed it. I don't want someone to go grab Hard Target and then I'll really regret it next time I go there and it's not there. So I needed it. Glad I own it. It's a John Woo classic. I need to start buying more Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I'm a huge fan of his 80s stuff and the early 90s, so I just need to get on that. I'm going to become the owner of Lugal. This is my favorite comedy. It really is. I had to upgrade it from DVD. It's maybe not my favorite comedy ever, but it's one of them. And it's grown on me heavily the last few times I've watched it. I'm surprised they allow him with cocaine on the front of the cover. Unrated. And yeah, this is one of the, definitely in the last 15 years, best comedies. Easily. The sequel's not really as good. And, you know, I think not enough people have seen it. And if they have, it was maybe when they were high or drunk, so they don't really remember it. I always ask people, like, do you remember that scene from Hot Tub Time Machine? They're like, nah, man, I remember, I've seen it, but I don't remember the scenes. So you gotta rewatch this, because I've seen it maybe 7 times in the last year, where I've just kept watching it over and over. I even showed my girlfriend, and she liked it, and that meant a lot to me. If people like movies that I like, it makes me happy that I'm not crazy, because I feel like sometimes I'm crazy when it comes to my opinions on films. What Women Want. I was expecting a garbage comedy, to be honest, but I laughed a lot. Mel Gibson's one of my favorite actors. He always has been. So I was really glad watching this, that his comedic timing was perfect, basically, and the chemistry between him and Helen Hunt was great. I overall just enjoyed everything about this. You know, I really am shocked to say that, because I, for years, thought this was going to be stupid. And I started it maybe 3 years ago on Netflix, and I just kind of went, I'm not finishing this. And then when I finished it, I was happy I did. I'm not saying you need to own a movie like this, but if you're a Mel Gibson fan, maybe. National Security, Martin Lawrence in his prime. God, he was funny, wasn't he? He still is, I guess, but really back then, he was a comedic gem of an actor. Love this. Him and Steve Zahn have some great chemistry. They bounce off each other really well. Overall, just good, it's a good comedy. You know, you don't get too many of these anymore where you got offensive jokes, kind of a stupid plot, but you can follow it and still understand what's going on. And interesting characters, good chemistry, like all these things that don't exist in movies anymore, you've got it here. Alright, so we've got The Benchwarmers, which growing up was one of my favorite comedies, and still probably is. I watch it once every year or so. I used to have this on DVD. I have no idea what happened to my copy, but I lost it. I would get it on Blu-ray, but at the store, it's usually $30 minimum, and you don't really need comedies on Blu-ray, in my opinion. If they're older ones, yes. And if they're classics, where, you know, they're really the best comedies, yes. Like a Fast Times at Ridgemont High, absolutely. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, absolutely. But stuff like this, you don't really need it on Blu-ray, man. Like, it's good enough to have it on DVD for whenever you're going to throw it in. It's not going to be uptight about my fucking Benchwarmers quality. Same with something like Starsky and Hutch. I fucking love this. I think it's one of the better TV movie reboot. I think it's great. In comparison to the Dukes of Hazzard one, fantastic. You know, I mean, you basically got the TV show and a movie here. It's a little goofier, obviously, but overall, you get a pretty good summary of what the show was like. The characters are really faithfully recreated, especially Huggy. Like, Snoop Dogg, I don't really like him. He did a really good job. And the casting, obviously, Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller, their chemistry is almost as good as Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. Almost. Maybe better sometimes. Zoolander. I mean, it depends on your, mood. I really enjoy, and Vince Vaughn's in this, I guess. And Jason Bateman. So you've got the whole crew of guys in a Starsky and Hutch movie. So overall, to me, it's just nice to have a movie this funny, also with some good action. So I grew up on it as well, so maybe it's just nostalgia talking. Frank the Tank, earmuff it for me. Another Vince Vaughn classic. He was like in a bunch of amazing comedies from 2000 to, or even Swingers is pretty funny. So mid 90s to 2010. This dude ran comedy. Hilarious. And Will Ferrell's pretty tolerable in this compared to a lot of his other movies where he's screaming the entire time. It's not funny. Loud equals funny. It doesn't, though. And Luke Wilson. He's got good chemistry with Vince Vaughn. So I guess the Wilson brothers and Vince Vaughn just hit it off well because they always have good chemistry. Overall, just great comedy here. This is like a top 10 of the 2000s for sure. Easily every day of the week. I wish I was the Godfather. Oop. Okay, which Which way do we want to do this? Yeah, okay, alright. Start here. Need for Speed Most Wanted. So I think this game gets a bad reputation because of the name. It kind of implies that it's the same game as the 2005 one, but it's not in really any way, shape, or form. No story similarities, no customization similarities, nothing, but it's a great game. It's a great game, and if it was named something else and it had a different Need for Speed title, I think everybody would respect this. It just turned people the wrong way because they were expecting a faithful recreation of the game that we all grew up loving. It's not that game, yet it's still fantastic in its own right. Give it a shot if you haven't played it. You need a 360, unfortunately it's not backwards compatible. X-Men Days of Future Past. So I don't like this movie, but after Deadpool and Wolverine, I needed a palate cleanser because for me that was like pure sloppy trash, where it was just fan service garbage. I'll talk more about that when I show my Deadpool 2 after. But this right here, I just needed to own it because I was going through the entire X-Men franchise. I started with X-Men 1, 2000, and I went, okay, this was good. Let me continue and go watch X-Men 2. X-Men 2 was good, and I had a really good time watching that. And I've seen these movies plenty of times, but it's probably been 5 years since I've watched all the X-Men. And then I got to X-Men 2, and I had a great time, so I wanted to watch X-Men 3. I had a great time watching that, so I watched Days of Future Past. I had a good time watching that, so I watched Origins Wolverine with just Hugh Jackman, basically. And I enjoyed that because it's like a fun, schlocky action comedy, basically. And then I kind of needed a little break, and as I took that break, I found this at the store for $5 and figured, I'll add it. It's the only X-Men I don't own. I bought First Class as well, which I already own with my pack, but I wanted to own it individually. So I've been slowly trying to own each X-Men individually. So I finally just caved. I don't like this movie, but I just wanted to own them all. It's a long story short. Long story long, really. Alright, we'll show this. Disturbia, which I'm probably going to put in after this, actually. I like this movie. It's Rear Window, but a modern retelling of it, basically, with Shia LaBeouf, and I like Shia LaBeouf a lot. If you grew up in the era that I did, the early 2000s, you'd probably like him. Even Stevens, Holes, Transformers, Disturbia, like, you've got a lot of movies where he was famous. Everybody knew his name. You know, now he's known as the meme. Like, just do it. But he was taken serious back then, and everybody thought he was cool, and all the women had a crush on him. I think of that Selena Gomez video where she was freaking out when she met him. He was the big deal back then, and I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, I'm gonna watch this. I still to this day act like him. I eat peanut butter from a jar and play video games. That's me. RoboCop 2. It's been probably 8 years since I've seen this, and all I remember is a little kid mastermind boss, and that's it. Everything else is a blur to me in this movie, so I'm going to have to rewatch this, and I'm going to rewatch this, so that's why I bought it. But finding it for $9 was so good, and I was so happy. Didn't think I was going to find it for any cheaper than like 20 or 30 bucks. Most places I see it, it's way overpriced, so finding it, I was very happy. Put that there so I can watch it later. Only a few movies left. Falling Down. We've all felt like him at one point or another, especially with the way society's heading now. We all kind of understand where this character is fucking coming from. Seemed crazy back then, and they try to play him as the crazy character, yet I don't really see him as that. I just see him as someone who's been pushed to the breaking point by society, because that's what society does to people. And it's a great movie. You know, Joel Schumacher gets fucking scolded for his shitty Batman movies, but he's not remembered for shit like this, St. Elmo's Fire and Lost Boys. He's made some great fucking movies, in my opinion, and this is his best movie in terms of pound for pound best movie. I love this shit. Please go fucking watch this, please. Deadpool 2. I pushed this off forever. I didn't want to buy the North American version. I didn't like the cover, and overall it's too expensive. This was $8 on Amazon, so why the fuck not? And it works perfectly fine in my Blu-ray player. So yeah, why not? And this is super duper cut, so you get extra footage too. And the original cut. I prefer the Fox Deadpool movies. They're just better overall. Like, I know we only have one Deadpool movie with Marvel so far to really judge it, but it was fucking bad. And people are really going to wake up to it as time goes on. Make that prediction right now. There's going to be a lot of people that 2 or 3 years down the line have the same reaction to it as they had with Spider-Man No Way Home, or whatever the fuck that last Spider-Man was called. where at first the fan service and cameos was enough to fill their stomachs up, and oh, it was so good, and here's take my money, and here, and the box office numbers are great and awesome, good for them. But people will wake up to how hollow, empty, and shitty the movie really was. I wanted a Deadpool sequel, not Deadpool and Wolverine running around being fucking boyfriends for 2 hours. Like, it was not good. It was not. There was no story there. There wasn't. And I like these first two Deadpools. They have serious moments. They do not undercut with shitty, fucking, stupid jokes. Some scenes do, but usually there's a payoff. With the new movie, it was just, we make funny jokes because we're Deadpool, and yeah, Ryan Reynolds, and people love everything. There was people behind me laughing at everything he did. Like, the proposal where he went, the proposal, and breaks the fourth wall. The guy behind me was choking on his popcorn. Like, it's not funny, man. Like, it's not. If your humor's that fucking low, where he just says the proposal, and you laugh, you're broken as a human being. You're broken. It's not funny. He's speaking. Hey, there was a scene where he's just coughing, Deadpool, and the guy's like, oh my god, ah. Like, we've reached that level where it's just, Ryan Reynolds does anything and people laugh, and it's kind of like with Jim Carrey, where I can see why people fucking hated him, because he's not that funny. Like, yeah, great, he's making some funny jokes in the past, some of his movies are good, but fuck is he ever irritating in that new Deadpool movie. So there's my rant. My prediction is give it a year or two and people will realize it wasn't very good. And the last thing I bought, which I already own in a bigger form up there in a big box set, but I wanted to get this because, again, I'm a collector. When you're a collector, you collect, and that's what this is. Shrek 3D, but it's all of them, and they're all in here, all 4 of them. And I like the first 2, of course. Shrek 1's a masterpiece. Shrek 2 is a great movie as well, and then 3 and 4 we don't really talk about. But the first 2 in particular are definitely worth mentioning, and makes me so happy looking at Shrek right now. Look at that. That's childhood right there. That's when movies were actually good, people. So thank you for listening to me talk about movies. Hopefully I don't have to reshoot this for a 3rd time, because I think it'd mentally break me as a human being. So I don't think I'm going to. But hopefully you had a good day. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.